ironically, this is about communication, and this is probably going to be my worst presented session because I've been sort of prepping them as I go, and this one was very much at the last minute. But anyway, I will do my best with it. And really, what we're looking at today is getting your safety plans off the paper and actually applying them, really, and the communication side of that. So obviously this sort of extrapolates out into other parts of your work. You need to be able to communicate what your plans are if you're putting together a big stage or that sort of thing as well. There'll be safety elements, but there's also that sort of thing. And the first bit is sort of just looking at the whys and wherefores around the communication a little bit. And then the second session after afternoon tea, and I won't be surprised if there are less people in here, but it's just, and that's fine, everybody's own comfort and energy levels. But was really to give people an opportunity in a safe space to sort of have a go at doing a bit of a briefing. So it will be a little bit more interactive as we go on, but I'm getting a bit bored with standing up here and talking, so I'll be jumping down and getting you to call things out, and it's a little bit more interactive this time. Apologies, I know after lunch you just want to go to sleep, but we'll get you being a bit more active. Yeah, so I'm just aware that what we do is we kind of, certainly those of us who work in the management level often go, okay, and the site manager's going to do a toolbox talk and an induction, and the poor site manager is a site manager because they're really good at site managery stuff. But they weren't the first person to put their hand up necessarily at school to be in the school production and be the lead. So there's different comfort levels around that, and it's just really sort of breaking it down as to what's necessary in those sorts of situations, but also, you know, helping upskill or give people an opportunity to practice doing a good toolbox talk. Cool. First one's blank. I'm going to read, I'm just going to do a social experiment. This is for my own entertainment. I did a psychology degree, and although I can't remember any of that, I do quite enjoy kind of pop psychology. So I'm going to read a list, okay? And I don't want anyone to write anything down, please. This is not about you. This is about me. Always about me. I'm going to read you a list, and at some point I'm going to ask you to recall stuff from the list. So if you do have that little pen and paper from your kit for later, that'd be awesome. Now, it really super isn't a test of you. This is just a little social experiment. I've read a bit of stuff and I want to see what it works and what doesn't. Okay, so here we go. I shall read the list. Sharpie, jeans, Leatherman, muesli, boots, jacket, charger, toothbrush, lecky tape, guitar, jacket, socks, toothbrush, whiskey, jacket, shifter, trainers, MacBook, belt, beanie, hoodie. Okay, so introducing myself. I'm Cathy Knowsley. Anyone who's been in the sessions before knows that slide is cut and pasted. Formerly, or no, still currently actually, a theatre tech. And I still go on tour occasionally, which is great fun. But that's my background, and the safety thing's something, a bit of icing I threw on the top of it's my retirement plan. And my business, High Vis Event Management, and I'm a registered health and safety professional with the New Zealand it's Health and Safety Association of New Zealand is what that stands for. So communication, why and what? So yeah, why do we communicate? Obviously, we have a lot of plans that, as I said before, that we need to get out to people. We also have a duty to communicate with other people in our workplaces. It's a legal duty regarding health and safety matters. So where we work, if you're on tour, you might be a touring company, you come into a venue, you've got your venue, you might have some suppliers in there who are providing the lights and the sound, and then you come in as a production company, and you're all different organisations, you have a duty to talk to each other about safety. You have a duty to make sure that what you're doing doesn't affect the others adversely and vice versa. So it's really, really important, and I do believe it's something that we could do better with in our industry around that. And a lot of the feedback I've had this week, and I've talked to some of the venue people about it, is the frustrations that people have with venues that seem to be going over the top with their safety rules and that kind of thing, and probably the same sort of story you get back from the venues saying that there's a lot of people who have no information, and the frustrations of trying to get that out from people. So it is something that's actually really important, and it's something that I'm quite keen to tackle and get some systems that I can help you with. Don't have all the answers right now, but to make that sort of process a lot cleaner and a lot clearer for people. Communication happens obviously in a pre-production way, and then it happens on site as well. So the last question on that was, how effective is it? And those that have been taking this kind of stream will have seen this multiple times. So, but it's something that obviously I'm pushing a bit of an agenda with this. It's the hierarchy of control for managing risks. If possible, legally, you need to eliminate the risk. So get rid of it. Otherwise, you need to minimise, and this is all risks to do with health and safety. And in minimising it, there's a process of steps that are more effective to less effective, and they are less susceptible to human error to more susceptible. Sorry, oh, that's a hard one after lunch. And briefings and that kind of communication sit very firmly in the administrative roles. So the question I sort of have is, why do we do briefings? And that's what we're going to explore today. But if you're relying on briefings, then you're possibly not addressing your risk assessments very well. So that's where that sits in that process. Whoa, whoa. All right, whoa. Just about gave the game away then. All right, pen and paper. Write down everything you can remember from the list Can't remember anything there, Smiles?
I just don't have a pen and paper.
Okay, all right. I'll get you to shout out when the time is right. You can use phones if you don't have pen and paper. Yeah. I'm so old school. Let me know when you think you're kind of done, and I've really got a sense of this. We could spend the next hour doing that, and then I've filled my time. I get my bottle of wine.
Do you get one per session?
I have been, yeah.
You drink one per session?
Yeah, then I definitely can't say susceptible. How are you getting on? Slowly. All right, let me know when you've dried up. Dried up? Very much. All right. Oh, I hope this works. That was my list. Now, if you haven't already figured it out, that's my packed list for my tour in a couple of weeks. So, how did you get on?
Why do you have long jackets? That's the one I remember.
We'll get to that. So, you got the whiskey? Because it stands out, eh? I wondered about that. Well, that's a little bit of a red herring. So, looking at the list that you've got, whereabouts on the list does it lie? The things lie. So, are there more things that you remember that were on the beginning of the list, the end of the list, or sort of somewhere in the middle?
Beginning and the end.
Evenly spread.
Evenly spread for you, Smiley?
Beginning.
It's beginning and end. Cool. Any more sort of more evenly spread You were? Yeah, yeah. Which ones in particular through the middle?
Guitar, jacket.
Whiskey.
Whiskey.
Yeah. 15 shifter. Yeah, I probably should have, to be a true experiment, just had random words that, I wanted to be kind of hip and topical with my audience. But I think there might be a sort of psychological shift because you know what the term shifter and you go, I recognise that as well. Cool, interesting. All right, so there is a thing in psychology, and certainly it's on Wikipedia for the popular psychology rather than the scientific psychology. Serial position effect. And basically, most people remember things it's a primacy or recency effect. Primacy means that you will remember things from the beginning of the list. And then recency is that you'll remember more things from the end of the list. And the psychology behind that is quite interesting, well, I thought it was, is that, actually we'll go back to the list. So the first few items, if I told you were going to be remembering them, I said Sharpie, you go Sharpie in your head, quietly. I didn't hear anyone say it. Sharpie, and then you go, and I said jeans, and you go Sharpie, jeans. You go Leatherman, Sharpie, jeans, Leatherman. And after about 3 or 4 of those, you'd be going, oh shit, I can't remember. This is too many things. You don't have time to repeat them all. But the ones at the beginning you have repeated in your mind. And you've actually, by doing that, stored them into your longer term memory quite nicely. And then the ones at the end of the list are actually kind of still in your short term memory. So your short-term memory is quite fresh for a period of time, and then over time it diminishes. If I had left this a lot longer, you would have remembered less things from the end of it. And then you'll remember 1 or 2 things in the middle, and that's just how it is. Now, you probably remember whiskey because it just stood out there, and you go, ooh, yum, or depending on your take on whiskey. Who got toothbrush? Yep. And who got jacket? Yeah. Okay, so there's that thing of that repeating multiple things several times that you are going to remember them more than things that aren't. So little bit, pop psychology, as I say. This is not, there are no controls subjects for this experiment. I was just quite curious as to whether or not it worked. Primacy and recency. So when you're doing something like some sort of communication thing, like a briefing, then the things that you mention at the beginning and the things that you mention at the end are the things that people are going to hang on to and remember. The example from my experiences, I'm an ocean swimmer. I go out swimming in the harbour and I do these events. And each time we do an event, we get a briefing from the event organiser. We stand on the beach and it takes about 5 minutes. And she goes, okay, so what we're going to do, you're going to get into the water, you're going to swim out to the buoy, and then you're going to go left at the buoy and you're going to go round to the next bay, and then you're going to go find the raft, go around the raft, and then over to the thing, and then round the point, and round the da-da-da-da-da, and then at the end you go past the jetty and get out. And every time I get in and I swim out to the first buoy and I turn left and then I go, what'd she say? And everyone else has sort of stopped that. They're going, what'd she say? I don't know. Oh, well, we'll just keep swimming. But I know that at the jetty I'm going to get out. And it's a classic case of this. And I try my best to pay attention, but you just don't. People just don't. It's psychology. It's not that they're bad people that they don't remember what you told them in the briefing in the middle. This is psychology. So that's how that works. So there are sort of factors that affect communication over and above what you're saying or how important it is. So with briefings, I mentioned before, we have, you'll have pre-production meetings, and that's how you'll get your information of who's doing what and all that sort of thing. And that generally happens at a managerial kind of a level. Often when you're working in those sort of situations where you've got multiple teams together, you might have the venue and you might have your production company and you might have whomever, the suppliers or what have you. It may be that the office manager has organised the contract with the venue, I know that from my experience of touring, I'd often turn up in venues and they go, you know, that health and safety information I sent you, and I'd be going, I never got it. You know, I live in Wellington. The office for the company I tour with is in Auckland. They didn't think it was important to send it to me, you know. So information's been swapped at that upper level, but it's not filtered down. So that's a communication issue. So my take on that is if you are interacting at that level, so the manager of the venue or whoever's doing the booking and the office manager, they talk to each other, they make agreements about safety stuff. And then you might find the technical manager and the production manager, they talk together about stuff. So there's a level of interaction there. It might be the same stuff, it might be repeating it, but it's at their level. And then when you get down to it, you've got your people who are rocking up with the truck and turning up, talking to the technicians on the ground, and then they have an interaction about it as well. Hopefully it's all the same information. Hopefully they're not standing there with a list saying, well, it says here that you're going to do this, and you go, oh, I didn't agree to do that. But those are all the levels of the communication within that. Are there any questions around that yet? Am I making any sense? I'm moving my hands around a lot, I'm aware of that. Cool. So that's all sort of that two levels of sort of the pre-production, talking to each other, and then it's the stuff that actually happens on the floor, and obviously that's kind of the most important because that's where people are going to get hurt or not hurt to do with safety. It's also going to be the efficiency of your pack-in and all of those other niceties around it as well. And so in that category I've got inductions and I've got the toolbox talks, and we'll just have a wee look in a minute about what the difference might be between those. But in terms of inductions, actually I'll go to the team-specific stuff a bit later. So inductions, and I got here, what's the purpose and what do they cover? And I'm going to leap down here and use the whiteboard, just to mix it up. Cool, can you all hear me? Yep. So, inductions, purpose, shout them out. Safety of what? What kind of safety?
The person
In a
new venue.
Oh, sorry, so this is induction.
So in my mind, an induction is when you get someone used to your venue. So you bring someone through and you tell them all your site-specific risks, all your plants or machines or whatever that could cause a risk to someone, or that they just need to be aware of. And then you show them your fire exits, your first aid kits, where your toilets are, where the green room is, all of that shit. It's to bring someone through and make them aware of everything that is specific to your site.
Cool.
Making the venue user-friendly for clients, kind of, or, you know, like using some jargon there, but it's user-friendly for whoever's
Familiarisation.
Yeah.
Cool.
But it's also used to find out if the people bring in any hazards into the venue that haven't been identified in the assessment that's been sent out on manager level.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. So there's you've got some hazard stuff. So is this like from the company? Anything else?
Induction's like a first date. You're getting to know each other.
Good. I like it. And if you're on tour and it's week 2, you're probably starting to talk dirty to each other by the end of the day.
Introductions.
Introductions, yeah. Oh. Anything else with that? Can you also sort of see that? Is that a good place to leave it?
Maybe adding to the list on the left of the sort of content, maybe protocols
Protocols?
or processes that people need to be known about.
Also the time to give out slide cards.
Yep.
Yeah.
So there might be stuff about security. Things like that.
Wi-Fi.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Yeah.
Don't get it out until you finish the other bit. Very good. First date, I like that. Andrew. So,
I think I got that from my consultant.
Oh, yeah.
I wonder who that was.
all right. So this induction, we're talking sort of a venue induction, but obviously you might have a workplace induction for a new employee and that sort of thing. It all sort of extrapolates out. But a lot of this stuff is the site-specific risks, the sort of nail on the head there, Smiley, thanks for that. It's kind of, what I think is that this is the sort of stuff that you really only need to tell people once per visit, unless you change it with them. So often we mix up sort of induction and toolbox talk, and then everyone gets a little bit confused because they're told that they have to have a toolbox talk at the beginning of each day, but their toolbox talks includes where the toilet is, which I've got to say I'm guilty of putting into my initial toolbox talks. So I've only recently sort of separated these two out. But all of this stuff is like who has access to it, all of those sort of site rules and that sort of stuff. Stuff that you cover once, more or less, and there's a sort of, there's a degree of manakitanga, I guess, with that. Welcome, come on in, this is our space, this is how we would like to treat you, this is how, we expect you to treat us, blah, 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 that sort of stuff. So, the where and have views and the comfort staff, that sort of stuff as well. Where the first aid kits are, who to talk to about that sort of thing, who to report stuff to. Very good. I can't remember how I did this. Hang on. Okay, all right, cool, good. All right, so toolbox talk. As opposed to an induction.
To discuss what you're going to do for the day.
All right.
Where are we at?
Job sequence.
Yeah, who's doing what?
Whoa. What doing? What was that one?
Who doing?
Who doing?
And who's present?
Who's there?
Are they mentally present as well as physically present?
Ah, okay.
That's one I always like to tell our guys. They may be there, but they may be half asleep.
Maybe there, but not there. So in that case, do you use the toolbox talk to kind of check in and see how everyone is? So a little bit of a thing of like, how's everyone doing today? If you've got any thing that you need to tell me.
From that you might get, I'm actually a bit knackered. Do you mind if I don't do the machine today?
Yeah,
Okay, cool, you do it.
Okay. So sort of a check-in.
I guess it's also an opportunity to discuss any potential hazards of the job that you're doing that day. That's your opportunity to look in at what you're doing for the day and to discuss any risks or any specific needs of the task at hand.
Yeah, great. Cool. Anything else?
Targets
Targets?
for the day?
Schedule
So
for
sort
the
of
day,
timings and targets?
indication when your breaks are going to be, that sort of stuff.
That's the one I want to hear. Me, as soon as I arrive in the morning, I want to know when morning tea is.
Yeah.
But you always sort of add in, okay, but we'll look at that as it goes along. It may go half an hour either way.
No, I'm not
depending.
interested in that. I'm one of those, right,
Yeah.
It's an opportunity perhaps for the visiting company coming into the venue, it's for them to actually explain to the venue what particular processes they are bringing in, or how they unload their truck, or how they want their stuff to be handled. I don't know if that comes into the...
No. So it's job sequences, it sort of doesn't, so it's the processes, and it's sort of for the job for the day, really, isn't it? So there's no point, I guess, in us talking in the toolbox talk, in the induction, if I come in on Tuesday and to be sort of half an hour later going, and then on Thursday we're going to be doing blah 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 blah, and then on Friday we're going to be blah blah blah. So the induction bit is sort of that sort of getting to know the venue, the familiarisation of it, that kind of thing, getting that sort of information out there, and then sort of followed on the first initial induction by who's who, what are you doing, how, and and what have you, and that swapping of information. This induction's generally very venue heavy with information, and then the job stuff is more the people who are rocking in to do the work. Yeah. It's also, I think, a really great place to do like discussion of teams, different teams. So if you're doing a toolbox talk at the start of the day, you might be saying, lighting, we're going to be doing this, and set, going, oh, hang on a second, I thought we were going to be doing that bit there. It's like, well, set's building that there, so lighting, you go and do that bit front of house first, and then once set's finished, we're going to do this, and you're getting the kind of orders and what hazards other teams are bringing in as well, especially if it's a big show.
It's also an opportunity for lessons learned.
I beg your pardon?
It's also an opportunity for lessons learned.
Lessons learned from like the
day before.
Yes, absolutely. Yep. So lessons learned, and I also encourage it to be a time for a little bit of an amnesty. Did anything happen yesterday that you forgot to tell me about that I might have needed to be reported? You know, something that was particularly around incidents. You know, something, whoa, that was close. But I'm really busy and I can't be bothered doing the paperwork. But to go, oh yeah, actually I had a shackle talk or something. Great, I need to know that, because if that's a trend, then we need to get rubber shackles on. We need to know. We need to know so we can mitigate that sort of thing. Same with sort of cuts and bruises and all of that sort of thing. So has anybody got anything they wanted to report? And then maybe reiterating some of if there are any important things that people are forgetting. You know, don't forget, nobody's allowed in this area without their hard hat on or whatever. Just reiterating those points a few times. Cool. So everyone sort of get that distinction. So, and it's something, yeah, as I say, I've just recently come off a job and realising that a lot of my the stuff I'd written for the company I was working for, the induction stuff was getting a bit repetitive when people were hearing it more often than they needed to, and just sort of separating out those two sort of things with it. When you do your toolbox talks?
First thing in the morning.
First thing in the morning?
Or afternoon if we're starting late.
Yep. First, at the beginning of the job.
At the start of the job, yeah.
Or if more people are coming in later, like if you've got a crew turnaround happening in the middle of the day, you would have another toolbox talk.
Yeah, great. Cool.
I like to try and do them on the pack out as well, because a lot of our events are one day,
Yeah,
10
right.
in the morning, out at night. So
Yeah.
trying to get a toolbox talk morning and a toolbox talk night. The night one's harder to get because people turn up and just go their various ways. But they're the harder ones to get.
Yeah, cool.
If I'm working with a show that is like a show crew and then they're going to pack it out, I try to have it before the show.
Right. Yep.
So that you can just get so stuck in afterwards.
Yeah, cool. That's great.
After breaks, like after lunch or something.
Yeah.
Just as a like, here's something happening in the morning or.
Yeah.
We'll just check how we're doing with time. Do we need more time tomorrow to replan what we're doing?
At the end of the shift as well, or it'll come together. Yeah. Look, I don't think there's any right answer to that, other than I do like your one very much. I think we don't. I'm very opinionated. I don't think we do this well, and I don't think we do that well. But I think pack-outs need a little bit of work in terms of safety. And I certainly myself would always try and get a toolbox talk before pack-out, because pack-outs more than any other time are the rip, shit and bust times. And it's something I've sort of identified that I myself do. Is I have might have 3 or 4 pages of scheduling for pack in, and then I'll just have one line that says and pack out. and really, there's I may have thought about it and I may communicate it, or in my worst, I may not have, and everyone comes in and just starts pulling it apart. And I do remember, some of the bad old days stories of sort of ducking as a piece of, somebody swinging around with a bit of scaff tube, whilst I'm trying to coil cables kind of thing. And it's, I think, more likely to have an accident. I don't have any stats around this. This is just observational stuff, but more likely to have something go wrong during pack out because everyone's tired and all of that sort of stuff. So it's just that sort of stop. The show's come down, stage is clear, curtains in or whatever, if it's that kind of a venue or whatever. It's just taking the time to grab everyone, making it part of your culture if it is difficult to do, that you don't start work until you have this toolbox talk. Toolbox talks don't have to be that long, but it is how are we going to do this together, and it's exactly the same process. Lighting's going to be stripping out the cables first, and then, and sound, but set, you're going to be, slowly working on that until that's clear, and then you go in and start pulling out the structure that everybody's standing on, not before, and, points out last, and all of that sort of stuff, and really thinking through what those hazards are of those teams coming in and working over the top of each other. And this is all part of this communication thing. So we're talking about the sort of formal communications. I mean, I think these are pretty casual, really. But they are, that sort of informal communication that we have with each other as well. Watch out, mate. Or stronger if they have just about hit you. Cool. Any other sort of discussions around that? Any other reason we do the toolbox talks and the inductions? To prove that we do it? To have a written record that we actually do consult with each other, and that's right there in the arse covering side of things that none of us like. We all just want us to be safer, but the reality is that if we've said that we're going to be doing inductions, then having a bit of a record of who has been inducted is a good thing to do.
On our induction sheet are the toolbox talk sheets that we have in the morning. Actually, all the departments or everybody that's on there, they basically designate their job as well on there, what they're there for. We all sign them, and they actually get filed in the event-specific file as part of the paperwork.
Yeah, cool. And you do that paper-based or?
Well, we used to, but we just do it on a tablet.
Yeah.
We'll just get everybody to sign on a tablet and then get emailed. It works pretty well.
Yeah.
We use it also as the time to review the rigging plans and the packing plans. So build the teams and say you're working with this guy and you're building the trusses, and then if there's a bigger build that involves caterers or the operations team coming in to build tables and whatnot, we sometimes pull them in as well and say, just as a heads up, this is what's happening throughout the day. It's not going to happen right now, but this happens later on, so everybody else is aware as well. Because it's easy to leave the caterers out. But they're going to be the one running around under the trusses while stuff's happening.
Yeah.
Literally, yeah.
Yeah,
definitely. So it's a chance to do that overlapping-y thing. And what going back.
It's also a good time to double check that everybody's got their PPE.
Yep.
The little stuff.
Yeah, actually that wasn't on there. It's so important, I'm going to leap down and put it on there. Not really, so that's all back. PPE. So that's
And sorry, one more thing we do with everybody that's in our teams when the casuals come in, also make sure that they understand. It's easy to say, well, and if you have any questions, if something looks dodgy, just sing out. But it's also worth acknowledging that sometimes people are so new, they don't even know what's dodgy because they don't really are familiar. They're not really familiar with all the tasks.
Yeah.
So just to team them up with somebody that is more familiar. But definitely that's, for us, an opportunity to make sure that everybody's got the right to stop work when they feel unsafe.
Right, yeah. And that's very important as well. Cool. So with a lot of companies, like we're talking about you rocking into a venue and you do an induction and that tells you where everything is. But the same sort of thing applies if you're new to say you've got a new job with an AV company and that you get an induction so that you know the communication that you're meant to do and what's expected of you on the job, that you're not just rocking up to a job unprepared for the culture of that organisation and what have you. So there's sort of inductions that happen at that level as well. But inductions, as I say, tend to be sort of at the beginning of the work thing. I like the idea of after lunch, you come together. I don't know that you necessarily, it has to be a formal toolbox talk, especially if you're doing the whole keeping record of your toolboxes. I think, there is no legal requirement to keep certain records of whatever. It's just that if something goes wrong, it's kind of cool to be able to prove it, and keeping paper records is a good way to do that. I'm sure when your crew is cross-examined that they'll stand up for you and say, yes, we do have those sorts of things. So, but, it could just be 5 minutes coming together after lunch rather than just sort of drifting in and just going to your thing, is to go, hey, this is what we're going to be trying to achieve. And it's not necessarily all about safety. It's all about, hey, by the end of today, we're going to want to be at this level. Has everyone got what they need? Is there any issues? That sort of thing. And it's a chance for everyone to talk together. The introduction thing's quite handy. I find I'm more inclined to save the life of the person next to me if I know their name than if they're a stranger. And, back in the day of doing things, it could be lunchtime before I knew the new person's name or whatever. So just, it's just an informal whip around. Who's in charge? Who is the head mech today? It could be different from the one that was head mech yesterday or whatever, and who's going to be the person that we go to for things is really important. I think the other key with that, and it's a little bit going back to that list that I just did, is don't make it too long, okay? Particularly your toolbox talks. Stick to the things that are really, really important, and then maybe stop again in the middle of the morning and do the next phase and the next phase, because people aren't going to remember. People will drift off. People get distracted. Even if I don't have my phone out, oh, it just buzzed. I wonder who that was. I wonder if that was about that. And I'm gone. I'm not listening to you anymore. I may look present, but I'm not. So those sorts of things are, the sort of the fallibilities of it. I can't remember my PowerPoint slides. Learning styles. Okay, so I'm jumping a little bit all over the place here. But different people have different learning styles. Different people have different strengths and things. So those of you probably who remembered stuff from the list more through the list, I would hazard a guess, and again, this is my pop psychology coming in, that you are more of an auditory learner, just hazarding a guess. So that you learn things from hearing. Some people can learn things from hearing. Other people are stronger at learning things from doing. You can listen to, I can listen to a whole lot of instructions. I'm not going to take it in unless I'm actually, I'm actually a little bit more visual. If you show me a schematic, then I'm going to take that in more than if you give me words. And probably a little bit kinesthetic, If I do it, then I'll retain it. Different people have different strengths in that area. So to have a one-fits-all way of communicating is not going to work for everyone. So if you stand here like I am to you now and just blah, 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 then you're not necessarily going to retain it. For some people, yes. For other people, if we get up and actually move and do it. So bear that in mind with what you're doing. I had a great opportunity recently working on second unit down at the waterfront, and I just tried a few extra things. I was the health and safety advisor, and I needed to brief we gave everyone an induction coming on site. It was quite the work site. We took over Circa Theatre, like every aspect of Circa Theatre, backstage and all the stages. It's a big immersive event. Where the audience are extras in a movie and they've got access to the whole building. It's an absolute nightmare. Yeah, what's the switch? Oh, that's the mains power switch. Yeah, those sorts of things that you have to find, but very fun, very, very fun. And so we inducted everyone coming on site, and a couple of slides back, I'm not going to jump back, I said to be team specific. What I realised was that the induction that was there for the crew that was packing in really didn't make that much sense to the crew, the front of house crew that I was then needing to brief, or the hospitality crew that were needing to be briefed, or actually the actors coming in needing to be briefed. So trying to be specific, you know, the actors don't need to know that they need to have a lanyard if they're working on their tool, if they're working at height. So there's no point in having that on your briefing. So try and be as concise as possible, but also relevant to those groups. But the other thing that we needed to do was then we had the rehearsal period, but then once we were getting performance into the performance mode, we needed to really rebrief, because we had the whole pack-in time and there were emergency procedures for that. But once we got into show mode, there were quite different emergency procedures. The way we had set it up, we'd had to put extra emergency things in place, and there's a sort of outside compound that has brake doors going out and all of that. So I just sort of took the opportunity to test some of this stuff out, and as well as telling people, I took the whole cast around, and so I showed them each and every exit and how to open it and close it, and they saw it, they touched it, and they heard it, and then they, hopefully, with their different strengths, will remember it. Cool. So don't be afraid to take, instead of just doing an induction, standing there and talking to people, is to take them around and actually show them where things are. They're far more likely to retain. Cool.
Would that be a reasonable way to delineate the difference between an induction and a toolbox talk? Is that one is standing there and just talking, and the other one is more of a physical environment, wander and...
Yeah, I mean, personally, I would prefer with an induction that you go and show them where the first aid kit is, rather than just stand there and say it. Because if I'm doing an induction and where the first aid kit is buried in the middle there, it's not a primacy, it's not a recency. You're not going to remember necessarily. However, if we've walked past it and if we've actually even touched it, then the chances of retaining that. And I think the thing with this is also to kind of go, look, plan it, you know, don't just stand there and do it, but have a bit of a plan of what is the most important things that these people need to know, and make sure that you repeat them, preferably 3 times, because more people remembered whatever it was, jacket than toothbrush, but repeat them a couple of times, the really important stuff, and then also, you know, do it in various ways. You know, you can stand there and say, you know, give instructions on, I guess something like a rescuing from height. You can talk through it, but unless you've got the kit in your hands and you've actually put it over the bar and you've felt what it feels like to click that in and whatever, it's way better to have actually practiced it in a physical way.
I find that a lot with getting people who aren't necessarily huge technician people, but helping with pack-outs, just helping like lower drapes to the floor. It's something that they can get involved with because it's pretty low risk.
Yeah.
But trying to get them to explain what to do is so much harder than say, watch this person over there who knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
Copy them.
Yeah.
And that actually they'll learn so much faster. But something as rudimentary as catching a drape and standing there with it, which is effectively what you're asking them to do.
Yeah, exactly. So it is, and again, it's slightly different strokes for different folks. And just because somebody doesn't get it in that kinesthetic way doesn't mean that they're stupid. They just are more of a visual learner or more of an audio learner or whatever. So it's being aware of those sorts of things. Is there any questions or anything around that stuff? I have no idea what my next slide is. I really should have been communicating. Oh God, it's that one again. It's because I like to repeat this one. I think those who have been in several sessions have had it at least 6 times, so you should remember it by now. I think we're going back to this one, is around, what was I wanting to talk about here? I think one of the things that's not on the list for the toolbox is also going through your safe work method statements or your safe operating procedures or whatever it is that you're calling it. So if you've got a job that has multiple steps that's the time that you can do that as well, and communicate stuff to it. But I think the thing about looking at sort of the order of things too is to realise what the limitations of a briefing actually are and what you're expecting from them. So I just sort of want to get a sense from you, when you do a toolbox talk, how much emphasis are you putting on people remembering stuff with it?
Like really, when we do a toolbox talk in the morning, it's just to get everyone G'd up to start the day's work. But we're a small place, and it'll be like a team of 4 of us, and we'll be in communication the entire day. So the toolbox talk's just really to get them G'd up to go for the day. And here we go. These are the jobs we will do today.
Yep.
But we're not really.
You're not doing too much detail. You're not expecting them to remember stuff.
Setting out a plan that you're now going to follow for the rest of the day, step by step. We're just sort of discussing what we're going to do over the course of the day, what potential hazards might be involved in it, how we're going to mitigate the risk of that, and just stuff like that. But it's not like a plan that you're now following this plan of action step by step. It's more like it is just a discussion, essentially.
Right. Okay, cool. Anyone else? What you sort of think? Yeah, Andrew.
Sort of bullet point the main points of the toolbox onto a whiteboard. And
Yep.
change those as things during the day.
So you can go past the whiteboard and go, oh, we've done that, good, and we've gone to this one. And do you put them in order of the order that you're going to be doing them? Or?
Depends who we're working with.
Yeah. And would you do that with the touring company coming through?
We have done in the past, yeah.
Yeah.
Depends on who it is and, just where and the complexity of what the setup might be.
Yeah. I mean, I guess from my experience, the most frustrating thing is to rock up as crew and not know what you're doing all day, and then just be fed a little bit of the next bit of information and not ever see what the big picture is. It's just soul destroying, that sort of thing as well. So it's making sure that you're doing that sort of stuff. But the important stuff, as I say, has to be either repeated or given out or controlled in a different way from just a briefing. If you're expecting the briefing to, if you're expecting people to follow things, and particularly with stuff from the induction, again, I've just recently come off an event where people were there for 10 days or more, and we gave them one induction at the beginning, and their team groups did toolbox talks. We probably could have done better with the toolbox talks, I think, but that was something we can improve going forward. But what I noticed is as the week went on and people got tighter, the stuff that had been covered in the induction was no longer being followed. People were wandering into the main space without putting their hard hat on or whatever the things were. And so then had to be followed up, not with another briefing, but with supervision as well. We weren't able to sort of expect that they would retain that and follow that all the time, but that it's, as well as the briefings, you've also got in your toolbox that that you're equipping people to be able to actively supervise for things that really matter. Cool. Very good. All right. So we have 10 minutes and then we have a wee break and then we go into the next one. But I think it's all the same people, is it not? Cool. All right, I've got to get my head around the next session, so maybe we should break early. I'll get my head around the next session and we'll come back. Cool. Thank you.